Good day, everyone. My name is Rico Mariano Aguilos, BSHM2B, and our group present the chapter 12, which is the woman in the Philippines. The role of the woman in the Philippines, Filipino o kababaihan sa Pilipinas, is explained based on the context of the Filipino culture, standards, and the mindset. The Philippines is described to be a nation of the strong women who directly and indirectly run the family unit, businesses, government, agencies, and haciendas. Although they are generally define themselves in the milieu of male-dominant post-colonial society. Filipino women live in a culture that is focused on the community, with the family as the main unit of society, but not always according to the stereotype. It is in this framework of the Filipino historical structure, class differences, religion justification, and living in a global developing nation wherein the Filipino woman struggle for respect. Compared to other parts of Southeast Asia, women in the Philippines society have always enjoyed a greater share of equality.
Good day, everyone. My name is Angelica Mipabelco, Chapter 12, Women in the Philippines. Learning outcomes. At the end of this chapter, the student should be able to 1. Describe how the role of Filipino women in society evolved. 2. State at least 3 kinds of responses of Filipino women to oppression. And 3. Explain how oppression emerged in the Philippine society. Women in pre-colonial Philippines. Most Filipino women philosophers conquered the disparity between throughout the colonial era. Both men and women started to alter. Women served as village chiefs before colonialism. The babaylan was one of the 3 central social figures, along with the dato or chieftain. And panday or smith babaylans are typically described as a specialized knowledge or ability in spiritual connection. A pre-colonial man or woman who acquired a female character was known as babaylan. They asserted that the spirits had handpicked them and given them special ability for relating to intangible beings of the natural world. A babaylan was believed to have a unique insight of culture, religion, and natural phenomena. These people had the ability to negotiate and communicate with spirits. Male and female children did not experience any form of inequality regarding division of inheritance. Male and female children were also educated equally according to their indigenous system, and each took an active role in society when they grew up. Around the time of the initial Spanish encounter, the majority of the native population could write using their own spelling. Sexual education was deemed to be a mother's obligation to her daughter, at least according to the Kalanchow Code. Not everyone regarding sexual restraints about virginity in marriage. The bride's family received a dowry from the husband, and marriage were pre-arranged. If a lady was particularly deserving, the husband would assume her name while the wife retained her own, due to the fact that each spouse still had ties to the other spouse's family. Each member was seen as an equal partner in the marriage. Even back then, women were in charge of managing the home and took a lead in making all important choices. They also took a part in negotiation of contract with their spouses. Women were free to exercise their decisions concerning reproduction, with abortion as an option. Divorce was available to both husband and wife, and both had equal rights to property and children under ancient laws. Women significantly influence how individuals went about their economic life. They engage in genuine farming activities such as planting, harvesting, weaving, creating pottery, and trade. The majority of the family fortune was under the supervision of women, who also managed the family's land holdings. Even the contract respondences and billings were under their jurisdictions. Women were common in public life, and some were successful enough to rule their clans as direct rulers, protectors of the young dato, or simply a strong individual who could make alliance or negotiate the outcomes of conflicts. Women frequently serve as community leaders, according to historians Luis Diere. They frequently participated in warfare alongside men. Today's Filipino community, there is a measure of equality among men and women, especially when women are involved in or are even mainly responsible for the family's income. It is only when a society is structured on the production or surplus and accumulation of wealth that class and hierarchy merge of necessary, and that women's oppression and inequality become ensured. The prediction will come true. Pre-Hispanic Filipinos suffered greatly as a result of Spanish invasion, and their towns were destroyed, and colonialism forcibly removed the people from their pre-existing societies and had them work under Spanish rule to meet the colonizers' demands. Also, the Spaniards put their religions on indigenous people, imposing a foreign way of life. The Babaylans took the initiative in the fight back against colonization of their land. They campaigned against settlements being moved and arranged of it and reductions parish system. They tried to defend the people's traditional beliefs by persuading them to reject conviction to the new faith. There were even a number of Babaylan lead uprising between 1596 and 1780. Legendary like the Ponggay of the Bayan, these Babaylan women. The Babaylan tradition is still present in the Philippines, as shown by a seminar study by ethnomusologist Grace Nano 214 that the nationality that underpinned the Babaylan cosmology still influence the current worldviews of many traditional communities from urban center of the world of the indigenous peoples. Many Babaylans are still active women who serve as healers, culture barriers, storytellers, negotiators, and ceremonial leaders. They engage in ancient ritual and incorporate Christian and Islamic worldviews, and impact a feelings of an order views that is not foreign but nourishing to those who understand it. In other words, their traditional female leaders continue to serve their communities in the same manner that they did in the past. They have adopted diverse phases of many civilizations and have mastered the ability.
Women in the Hispanic period. The Spaniards colonialized the Philippine Islands and forced the settler to follow a foreign moral culture code. They saw early Filipinas as two centuries of free, but appreciated them for being intelligent, strong-willed, and practical. Spanish friars admonished women to remain pure and obedient, to exploited their influential position in the traditional communities to spread the new religion. To remold women in the alien nation of ideal women, they were thought to avoid sin by keeping chaste, not being a vain, dressing modestly, keeping busy at home, and being self-sacrificing. This created a woman who was only active at home withdraw from the public sphere. Women during the Spanish era were key actors in the Philippine Revolution, playing major role as a leaders, soldiers, elders, and heads of logistic operations. The propaganda movement sought to raise the status of the woman, and the woman in the 1890s recognized a Masonic lodge called Logia de Adoption. Despite 300 years in misogynistic irritation, women could still fight their place among men in the fight for the Filipino liberation. Agenda Iniquento Cahabagon rose to the rank of General Brigada in 1899 and led a military unit under the Aguinaldo Army.
Let's proceed. The birth of militant groups with a feminist agenda. Revolutionary groups that emerged in the 1960s and 1970s were associated with the communist and the socialist movements. These groups argued that the nation was suffering from underdevelopment because its economy served the interest of the U.S. by providing cheap labor and free access to resources, as well by serving as dumping ground for U.S. goods. Women who worked with the underground and above-ground components of the Communist Party and the other socialist groups that arrived it realized that the agenda of liberation could also serve women's quest equality. Many of problems women are the result of abusive structures that kept them poor and exposed to various kinds of exploitation. The socialist and militant women's movement, as they called themselves, believed that the only way to achieve equality to the society was to liberate the nation from the exploitation of the elite of the U.S. However, women issues on equality were considered secondary within the communist and socialist movements, that the militant women had to gather themselves together, the Socialist Party, to push women's agenda while struggling for the national liberation. The iconic malayang kilusan ng bagong kababaihan, Makibaka, the radical women's group led by students activists, showed that the root of women's problems lay feudalism, capitalism, and colonialism. They also asserted that the role of women in the liberation movement should not conform to making sandwich, raising funds, jotting down minutes of the meeting, and playing adjuncts to the male leaders who generally made the decision. Makibaka became inactive because its leaders were imprisoned or driven into hiding during the martial law. The organization is an important party of history as it was the first group emphasized that the issues as integral and yet distinct from the general national liberation objectives of the party, the kilusan ng kababaihang Pilipina, and the katipunan ng kababaihan para sa kalayaan, were groups formed in 1980s that challenged the potentially anti-women ways to the Communist Party leadership. The assassination of Benigno Aquino Jr., the main opponent, former president turned dictator Ferdinand Marcos, brought women's group into a limelight as they pushed their own political agendas. These organizations were led by middle and upper class, politically inclined matrons who sought for justice, freedoms, and democracy through peaceful means. Since 1986, Tamil women movements in the Philippines shifted from a broad coalition to the tactical and issues of project-based alliance. On the area of coalition formation that did work in turn the centuries in the party list system. When the system is implemented in 1996, women's group coalesced into the three main groups. Gabriela transformed itself into a political party and brought together people's organization, NGO, and other women affiliated with the National Democratic. Left give-ups, the more centrist and middle-center groups formed by the Aber Pinay, another broad coalition formed by left and center-left groups known as AKAN, adopted a woman agenda alongside its other issue. These three groups used their pigment position to increase public awareness on issues affecting women, push for the implementation of government projects in ways that benefit women, helps channel funds to women, Projects organization provide training and education and network resource organization. Women in the Philippines have the history of serving the society not only homekeepers or as producer of children. The fact that women have the struggle to have rudimentary reproductive health law and have special law to protect them domestic violence show that their voice is still dominant in shaping the world they live in. The question now is how to create a social order that not accommodating women's about is shaped by them as equal partners of men.
10 Filipinas who advanced modern feminism in the country. Leticia Ramos Shahani, she was a former senator, chair of the National Commission on the Role of Filipino Women and UN Assistant Secretary General for Social Development and Humanitarian Affairs. She is the one of women who spearheaded the solely drafted Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, or CDU, during the height of the international recognition of women human rights. Patricia Benitez Licuanan, she served as a chairperson of the Commission of Higher Education, chairwoman of the National Commission of the Role of Filipino Women, chairperson of the Commission on the Status of Women, chairperson of the Main Committee 4th World Conference of Women, co-founder of the Asia-Pacific Women's Watch, and convener of the Asia-Pacific NGO Forum in Beijing. Teresita Quintos Delis, she is a peace advocate, former chair and co-founder of Coalition for Peace, National Peace Conference presidential advisor on the peace process during the time of former President Benigno Aquino III, the appointed lead convener of the National Anti-Poverty Commission. Sister Mary John Mananzan, or OSB, she is a feminist activist, former Gabriela chairperson, former president of St. Scholastic Colleges, and prioress of the Missionary of Benedictine Sister of the Manila Priory. Sister Christine Tan, she was the first Filipina who led the Philippines Province of Religious of Good Shepherd, a former chairperson of the Executive Board of the Association of Major Religious Supervision of Women in Philippines, and founder of Alay Kapwa Christian Community. Joy Barrios, she is a popular poet, actress, scriptwriter, and activist. She earned her PhD in Filipino and Philippine literature from University of the Philippines and served as associate professor and associate dean of the UP College of Arts and Letters. Next, Lorena Barros. Lorena Barros was a woman leader, gifted writer, and one of the icons of modern Philippine feminism. She was one of the well-known heroes during the anti-dictatorship struggle who founded the Malayang Kilusan ng Bagong Kababaihan, or Makibaka. Risa Jajuri, Attorney Jajuri, is the Moro Program Coordinator of the Alternative Legal Assistance Center and advocate of Muslim women's rights. She believes in justice for Muslim women in accordance with Islamic techniques and human rights standards. Rosel Ambubuyog, she is the first visually impaired Filipina who be awarded summa cum laude, blind at the age of 6. Ambubuyog did not let her disability her to finish her studies. Rosa Henson. Lola Rosa was a comfort woman in 1992. She broke the silence about Filipina comfort women for an autobiography, Comfort Women, Slave of Destiny during World War II. She joined the Hukbalahap and served as a messenger.